All right, welcome everybody. This is Lindsay Sherwin-Warren, the new chair for the Peninsula Regional Transportation Planning Organization. Since this is my first meeting facilitating, I think I should say a little bit about facilitation. I'm not going to name everybody off during intros the way that Beck was able to do. So we'll find a different way to do that. Also, for things that are more like routine, like approving minutes, I'll probably just go faster. But if facilitation is going too fast and you want to slow it down, just say something. Or if you're like, wait, I want to make a motion, but I'm not quite sure what to do, or is that a motion to amend or something like that, just jump in and say something and we'll figure it out. Because I think process is to help us as a group get to a resolution that works for the majority of the group. And so when it's something like simple and routine, let's move that through. And when it's something that we need to take time on, we definitely want to take time on it. So that's a little bit of my philosophy there. So let's start with introductions. And maybe let's go first with counties. So who do we have here from Kitsap County?
David Fort, Kitsap County.
Hey, David. And what about Mason? Maybe nobody from Mason. And
I'm here from Kitsap County, Bainbridge Island. I don't know if you're calling counties and then.
oh, sure. I don't know. I all right. Let's everybody from Kitsap County as a geography. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Brenda.
That's me. Yeah.
I guess I'd be in that.
Kitsap Transit and Kitsap County.
Yep.
All right. Welcome, John. Welcome, Michael. All right. And what about Mason County and the geographic area of Mason?
I'm Dick Taylor for the Port of Shelton.
Amy Asher,
Thanks.
Mason Transit.
George Bush, City of Shelton.
All right. Welcome, Dick and George and Amy. Anyone else from Mason County area?
Marty Allen of Skokomis Tribes in Mason County.
Hey, yes, good point. I'll find a better way to do that because, the tribe's its own thing too, right?
Tracy Parker Squaxin.
Hey, Tracy. All right. And what about Jefferson County? Kate Dean, you're here.
Hi, everyone. Kate Dean, Commissioner, Jefferson County.
Ben Thomas, City Council, Port Townsend.
And I think Jefferson.
Miranda Nash, Jefferson Transit, and PRTPO Fiscal Agent.
Thanks, Miranda. And I guess we're all missing a big event in Port Townsend about transportation, which is unfortunate timing. Ben, you're apparently stepping out from that.
Exactly. It's next door, so I ran over here to do this meeting, and I'll run back and jump back in.
All right. We'll have to coordinate better next year. All right. And Clallam County. Hey, Mike.
Mike French, Clallam County Commissioner.
All right. Brendan.
Brendan Meyer, Clallam Transit.
And Steve.
Steve Gray, Clallam County Public Works.
And Rachel.
Rachel Anderson, City of Sequim Council Member. Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor. And Katie.
Katie Cole, City of Sequim, Project Engineer.
Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Euchre, City of Sequim, Resource Analyst.
All right. Did I miss anybody?
Wendy.
Wendy. Oh, sorry. Hey, Wendy.
Yeah, I just came late. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else for check-in?
I did just get a note from Ed Stern. He's running a little late, but we'll see him shortly.
All right. And we do have somebody from Kitsap Transit and WashDOT as attendees. I'm okay bringing attendees into the panels in case they want to participate. Obviously, if anyone's disrupting the meeting, we can change that, but I'm fine with that if that makes sense, unless anyone has an objection to that. So our first item for the agenda is approval of minutes, and we have the consent calendar of the minutes from February 16th, 2024. Are there any changes to the minutes? Anyone want to make a motion to adopt the consent agenda of the minutes from February 16th?
So moved.
So moved.
Second,
All right.
Ben.
Dick made the motion, Mike made the amendment. Any further discussion? Any objections? With no objections, those minutes are approved. Our next item is the award of the Transportation Alternatives funding for 4 projects. Vera, are you going to introduce this?
I am. Hi, everybody. I am coming to you today with an action item. This is sort of culminating a process that began last fall. I'm coming to you today to present to you 4 projects that the Technical Advisory Committee has recommended for funding through the Federal Transportation Alternatives process. Just very quickly to remind you, and especially for those of you who were not here last fall when this whole thing got started, Transportation Alternatives is it's a federal funding source that it covers a wide array of project types, pretty much everything except for road building. But it's most commonly thought of as particularly for bicycle and pedestrian kind of projects, is typically the kind of projects that people get excited about there. And it is the only source of funding that PRTPO has any discretionary authority over selecting projects to be funded with it. So unlike for our Kitsap partners, unlike the Puget Sound Regional Council, which allocates tens of millions of dollars directly or through the county processes, this is it for PRTPO. So, by programming ahead, including any carryover funds that are available to PRTPO today, and programming ahead through 2028, PRTPO has about, at the time that we started this process last fall, just about $2 million to award to projects. And to remind everybody, I don't need to remind staff, but certainly to remind policymakers, federal funding is complicated money to spend and to use. It's sometimes easier to get it than to actually spend it. And so a lot of thought goes into what projects get submitted for federal funding, especially when the dollar amounts are this low. So we really rely on the expertise of our agency staff to really help you evaluate projects. So they were instrumental last fall, the Technical Advisory Committee, in supporting the board in refining the process and putting that out on the streets. We launched a call for projects before Christmas, and that stayed open through the end of February. We received 4 project proposals, and I will tell you that the total amount of the 4 when they came in was a rounding error in a long-range planner's funding estimate for the next 4.5 years worth of revenue. So when we talked about these projects with the TAC, and we're going to talk about each project in a moment, but I just want to lay it all out to you here. When we talked about the projects with the TAC, what I advised them at that time is that instead of trying to shave 1.6% of the cost off of one or more of these projects to try to make it meet the total, that I could make a compelling case that PRTPO could afford to award funding, full funding, to all 4 proposals as presented. And I will tell you that 4 days before the agenda packet went out, we did get our final numbers for this time period from WSDOT local programs. And PRTPO actually has about $2.1 million to program instead of $2 million. And so you have enough, if these are the 4 projects, if you think that these 4 projects deserve funding, PRTPO has sufficient funding to do that. So I share that with you up front because, unlike the last time 4 years ago when we did this, I came to you and explained to you that you were not going to be able to fund all of the projects before you. That just puts everything in a very different light than if you have the capacity to fund all 4. So I just want to lay that out there for you. The projects are described briefly in the staff memo. They again are bicycle pedestrian in nature, non-motorized in nature. They range from sort of a citywide planning study and design, sort of developing design standards for different street types to in Port Townsend to convert its arterials over time to more complete streets that better align with their land use vision, and to pre-position the city to get grants. That's the smallest ask before you, and it is sort of like the purely planning project, but this will lead to more construction projects in the future. And the other 3 projects before you are all construction projects. And they will, some of them will like complete the design and construction. Others, like the, I'll say the SR19 Rhodey Drive project from Jefferson County, and the Race Street, Complete Street Phase 2 project from Port Angeles. Both of those have been through this process before. Both of those were awarded funding in the last go round to get them to a place now where you're seeing them come forward asking for this. And then the third construction project is a collaboration between the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe and S'Klallam County. And this is going to complete another link in the Olympic Discovery Trail. And again, another demonstrated high priority system that PRTPO has directed transportation alternatives funding towards over the years. So those, the project sponsors are here. The technical advisory committee, when they went through their process, they asked a lot of very detailed, I'm going to say staff-like questions. For those of you who were in the meeting room today before the meeting started, and you got to hear that discussion between staff and with some policymaker input about some of the technical details about why speed limits work the way they do. That level of expertise comes into the review of these. The technical advisory committee found all 4 of them to be feasible as presented and recommended full funding for all 4 of those. So with that, I will stop. I'll answer any questions that I can, but also would like to open the opportunity for the board to talk to the project sponsors.
Thank you, Thera. Any questions for Thera or the project sponsors? Brendan.
Yeah, can I make a motion that the tech board fund all 4 transportation alternative projects as presented?
Is there a second for the motion?
Second that.
Second by Ben. Any discussion? All right. Brendan, did you want to speak to your motion?
These are all just seem like real well worthwhile projects that should be supported. And I'm glad to see that they're moving forward. And I wish them all the best in their construction, and hopefully everything goes off without a hitch, which, you know, that's usually not the case.
All right, thank you. And Marty?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that anytime that I see anybody that wants to improve pedestrian, you know, anything that has to do with pedestrian projects or anything, I'm always all for it, because, you know, there's a lot of unsafe areas that we see in places that, you know, were built a long time ago and they never did really analyze for pedestrians and things like that. And these improvements really make a lot of difference. You know, we're trying to save lives and make things safe for people. I've added a lot of sidewalk projects here in the tribe. We used to never have sidewalks or lighting or anything, and there was so many times that people were hurt. I mean, there was even one incident I remember. One of my friends got hit by a 10-speed riding down the reservation road at nighttime and ran over somebody walking and put him in the hospital. Things like that, and a couple incidents with a couple of my family members that got ran over at nighttime walking down the road too. So kind of long-winded today, sorry about that, but I'm just saying that you know, I'm really for these. So congratulations to everybody that put in for these projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Brenda?
I just wanted to ask a clarifying question. Did I hear that the 2.1 million that was estimated is not what's exactly going to be awarded, it's 1.2 million.
No, I originally we thought it was going to be $2,016,000.
Okay.
It's out to be just about 2.1 million.
Oh, so this number is correct.
This number is correct. What my estimate that I came up with last September was low. So,
Okay.
so that was
good. It's good that it's low. Okay, thank you.
All right, any further discussion? All right, so we have a motion to fund the 4 projects presented for transportation alternatives, and those are projects from Jefferson County, Port Townsend, Port Angeles, and the Jamestown-S'Klallam Tribe. Is there any objection to that motion? Hearing no objection, the motion passes. Thank you. Right, and I've got to get back to my agenda for the next item. All right, next we have the amendment to the Regional Transportation Improvement Plan. Is that back to you again, Thera?
I'll take over on this one, Lindsay.
Thank you, Ed.
Chair. Yeah. I'm asking the executive board to approve the addition of 3 new projects to the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. This would be the first amendment for the 2024 to 2029 RTIP that the executive board adopted in October last year. There are 2 projects from the city of Sequim, the Priest Road Rehabilitation Project and the River Road Overlay. Both are essentially maintenance projects. And then S'Klallam County has the old Olympic Highway resurfacing project. And in your packet, you can see the details on each of the projects attached, and open it up for any discussion if you have any. And then I'd like to have a motion to approve, and that's what I'm requesting.
Any questions for Ed?
And I've received no public comment on this. So you know.
All right, is there a motion to approve the addition of the City of Sequim project, the Priest Road Rehabilitation River Road Overlay, and the S'Klallam County project, the Old Olympic Highway Resurfacing, to the PRTPO 2024 to 2027 Regional Transportation Improvement Plan?
So moved.
Thanks. I didn't catch who just said that.
Dick Taylor.
Thanks, Dick. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead.
All right, I saw Marty's second. Is there any further discussion? Is there any objection to approving the City of Sequim Priest Road and the S'Klallam County Old Olympic Highway resurfacing to the RTIP? Hearing no objection, that motion passes. Thank you all. All right, next up is the regional freight projects. I forget that acronym right now. Submittal. Thera, can you help me out?
PHMSIB. It's the Freight Mobility Strategic Investment Board. And I will tell you, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, I hate acronyms, but they have their place, and PHMSIB is one of those. So yes, I'm coming to you today. Because PRTPO meets bi-monthly, sometimes things pop up between meetings. So you did not hear about this in February because PHMSIB, the Freight Mobility Strategic Investment Board, released this notice in early March. PHMSIB is a tiny organization that makes funding recommendations to the legislature for freight mobility projects. And they came through this regional process 2 years ago. They reach out through RTPOs and ask RTPOs to engage their local partners in identifying projects, freight projects to be funded. They have their own internal process for how they're going to prioritize them and all of that, but it's as far as grant processes go, it's a pretty simple, streamlined opportunity for those who have freight projects to put them out there for consideration. And so on March 6th, PHMSIB reached out to all the RTPOs, asked us to do this. We have been working with staff, all the staff who have facilities that are eligible for funding, that might have projects on them, to come up with projects. I will tell you that this has been happening in a very, very highly compressed time frame. And this morning, I learned of interest in a fifth project being included. So what we're going to talk to you about is an overall process, what's in front of you. There's another project we're going to talk about this morning that we would, I believe, I'm going to let Ben and the Port Townsend talk about it more specifically, but he'll help us understand that project. But ultimately, what I am looking for is a recommendation from the board that these 5 projects now, not 4, but 5 projects should be forwarded to FMCIB and for their consideration in a 6-year funding package that they are going to send to the legislature in December. So two years ago, they were presenting a 2-year funding package. This time, they are recommending 3 biennia worth of funding for freight projects. And I will tell you that this time around, they have acknowledged that the previous process did perhaps not distribute funds equitably in terms of the statewide geography, and that rural parts of the state did not compete well last time. And so that plus the fact that there is 6 years worth of funding on the table instead of 2 suggests that this is a good time, given the level of complexity of putting an application together, which is, like I said, for freight especially, is pretty low, as well as the amount of money on the table. This is a good opportunity for some of these projects. FMCIB is emphasizing that they want to fund projects that will go to construction within the next 6 years. They are you could put multiple phases into a project. They are, and I will share with you that our local partners, they're so good at what they do, and they they're so used to applying for like Transportation Improvement Board grants, where you look at the dollar amount that's available by an area, and you go like, oh, we don't want to, if we ask for too much, it's. And I have advised them to not do that for this, not to limit themselves to say, oh, well, it looks like they might only fund so much, because the other thing that FMCIB does with this is they look at the unfunded need, and that is part of their message to the legislature too, that they received $100 million in funding request. I'm making this up totally, $100 million in funding requests from the Peninsula region, but it could only fund 4 million or something, that's useful information to them as well. So I wanted you to know, because you might look at these and go like, boy, isn't that a really big project? Yeah, it is. And there are, who knows, any one of these could get funded. But that's what this is about. So the 4 projects that are in your packet are described for you. There's the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe is doing design work on some key intersections on 101, which will, again, make these very attractive as construction-ready projects going forward, very attractive funding opportunities. Jefferson County has a bridge replacement. You saw this project 2 years ago. Actually, the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe as well. I think both of these were in the previous application 2 years ago, were not funded at that time. The Yar Bridge replacement would replace a failing bridge on a very, very important rural route that is not the highest classification of freight. Like they're saying, oh, we want these, they're called T1 and T2 routes. You don't need to worry too much about it, except out of 5 levels, those are the 2 highest. This is on a T3 route, but in a highly rural region. This is an essential, also emergency route. It's an agricultural route. It serves a transit route. And if further weight restrictions on this bridge will have very far-reaching impacts on freight mobility, US 101, routing, when there's a crash and all that. So very important project, even though it's on a T3 route. There's a project from Port Angeles, which again, you saw 2 years ago. At that time, they were asking only for the PE phase. This time they're asking for the full funding. And what this is going to do is retrofit the existing SR 117 US 101 interchange to enable trucks that are headed to and from the Seattle area to actually use 101 and the truck route to get to and from the port and not have to go through downtown Port Angeles streets. And this was a great example of a project that if Port Angeles were applying, say, to the Transportation Improvement Board for funding for this project, they would talk about it, for its walkable streets component, and it's going to help downtown Port Angeles achieve, sort of the retrofits and the mix of uses and all this kind of stuff that is very, very true. But for FMCIB, that's not what's motivating them. And so this was a great example of getting to work with staff and say, let's talk about this project different. Like, let's talk about it from the freight mobility aspect of it. And frankly, trucks having to drive through downtown historic Port Angeles streets and a street grid and stoplights and all that darn multimodal traffic everywhere and local business access, that's a real pain for trucks. And so it is in truckers and freight mobility's best interest to get those trucks out of downtown streets. Oh, and by the way, there is this little ancillary benefit. So that's a great example of how we talk about projects in multiple ways. And then finally, the last project is a Port of Bremerton project that they've been working on with the city of Bremerton. And this is a great project just in terms of showing how sub-area planning and planned action EISs can really go into making a project that can be expedited going forwards. And so this project is going to keep building out the internal arterial network that's going to support the Puget Sound Industrial Center, Bremerton. It's the only Puget Sound Regional Council freight center that's on the west side of the Sound. And that's all been coordinated also with everything that's all the residential and commercial that's going to happen in Belfair. So that whole area is growing, and this is an essential part of that network. And then will also help complement where the SR3 freight corridor is going to provide relief through downtown Belfair, completing this freight grid elsewhere in this square mile area will also take pressure off of Lake Flora and that really bad intersection that, again, the SR3 freight corridor is also working to improve at SR3 and Lake Flora. So, and again, another big project. And I think what really helps it stand out is it's got all that environmental and everything completed behind it, and they've already made a lot of progress. And they'll be able to see all these acres of landlocked industrial land opening as called for in the sub-area plan and planned action EIS. So those are the 4 projects that you received in your packet. The 5th project that we'd like to also add to the table and add to the consideration is and you're prepared to speak to that knowledge.
Yeah, I can here. Do we want to let Brendan chime in there since he's got his hand up for a bit?
Brendan, do you want to speak now?
Oh, no,
or?
just go ahead. I was just going to,
Okay.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, I'll add in what I know here. So I'm more of an overview. I don't have the full depth of the project fully, but this is a really important one for Port Townsend, and working closely with Jefferson County, like in partnership here, to deal with our entry to Port Townsend, which is kind of deteriorating and not keeping up with the increased traffic flow we've had. The DOT is going to be putting in a roundabout of some sort, and if we can get this grant, we can do a proper roundabout, which involves purchasing some land, having a full roundabout that can deal with all the freight that goes right through that intersection. So every truck that goes into town and every truck that goes to the mill goes to this particular intersection. So it's I mean, I think the estimation was 3 million pounds of freight. I don't know if that's accurate, but sounds good. It's everything that goes through our town. So it involves some other improvements that would really make a difference to everybody that lives there as well. So I'm really hoping this one can get through. Does anybody have any questions on this? Oh, Kate's got some good. She can back me up here.
Yeah, if I could just add, this has been a joint project with Jefferson County and Port Townsend because it actually straddles the city-county line. So Washtenaw proposal for a compact roundabout was unacceptable to the county and the city. It just felt like too important an intersection. So we are proposing instead a five-way roundabout, multi-lane, to better accommodate the large amount of freight that goes through. It also is adjacent to the Olympic Discovery Trail or the Larry Scott Trail, part of the ODT. And so we anticipate there being potential issues with just compatibility of multimodal transportation and really wanting to address it in a more comprehensive way than a compact roundabout would be able to. So this funding would allow us to go through a much more involved design process. This has been a priority. We've applied for federal appropriations for this project as well.
Thanks for that.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Thera. Brendan.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Thera for, it's been a few years, and I think my opinions have like sort of radically changed to where before I would be like a little more cautious about adding more projects in the fear that it would take away some sort of take the spotlight off of other projects. But now I think I've more flipped that dynamic to where, Thera, where you said, when the legislators see that there's $100 million worth of need. And I think that's in everything, because for a long time, I think legislators, would only have a certain amount of money, but if the need is shown to be far superior, they're going to have to eventually start finding more funds for each thing. And the second thing is the SR 117 from Port Angeles. They just have like one picture inside this. Is this just for these are this the applications in the packet? I mean, all the other projects seem to have a little bit more in-depth demonstrations of what the project entails, but Port Angeles only had one picture. Is this what they're seeing when they go over the forms?
So they will see these forms. I will tell you that 2 years ago, and some of your staff can attest to this, it was a spreadsheet, and it was just like they had like one cell of information. And I think one of the things they heard was that agencies needed to be able to provide them with more information. This is their first year with this application form. And as somebody who has designed grant processes once or twice in my life, I suspect at the end of this process, they're going to do an internal debrief and figure out how they could make their guidance to applicants a little better. I don't know if they're going to look at anything other than the form. They don't say whether you're allowed to submit anything else beyond the 4-page or 5-page form, but they also say there's nothing that says you can't. So there's no guidance at all on this, and it was just really what each agency wanted to provide. I hesitate to encourage anybody to try to run back and skip lunch and beef up a package further. I don't know, we're in new territory here. I know for a fact that they'll look at the actual form. The other thing that they didn't do was they didn't put a word limit or a character count on the form. So they will modify their process going forwards, I'm sure, because people like us will use it to its full extent. So I know it's probably not a satisfying answer, but I think your project, all 4 of these projects have a lot of merit and stand on their own. And I don't know that another picture or 2 is going to make too much of a difference, honestly.
Okay, good. Because I was just really worried, like, because it's the most expensive out of the projects and it has the least amount of information visually anyway. But yeah, no, appreciate it. Thank you, Thera.
Yeah. And it's also, though, if you don't mind, I'd love to build on something there. And I mentioned this in the brief, the brief to the board. One of the things that, to the best of my knowledge, affects all of the cities and counties, maybe except for Bremerton and the Port of Bremerton project. Our local partners don't have the capacity to collect the specialized freight data that makes projects competitive. So ports of Seattle and Tacoma have got it. City of Seattle, the big agencies and the big regions, they collect that data that's got valuation and tonnage and can give you the very specific details about where the freight's coming from and going to and the kind of market it's serving and all of that, that makes urban projects more competitive. It's one of the things that they can outcompete rural projects on. And so for what it's worth, we learned this 2 years ago, and PRTPO just happened to include in its Unified Planning Work Program an unfunded need that there needs to be a rural freight data collection effort, that if there was money, it could be done for, not for everybody, not everybody needs it, but for those who have the T1, the T2 routes, the marine terminals, to collect that kind of specialized data. So you'll notice the local applications, a lot of them have a reference to that. This particular form, I know this is probably not what they were expecting, but this particular form, question 11, says, do you have some unfunded future planning needs that we might want to know about? And so I said, well, you might put this information in there. So they did. And then also in the submittal letter to FMCIB from PRTPO, I would want you all to take a look at that and make sure that that reads okay. And obviously it'll have to be updated with this new project, but if it's included, but we also call it out there. And I think that this is an example of one of those things where PRTPO, by virtue of being a regional transportation planning organization that entities like FMCIB turn to, you can educate them and help them understand what, some of the challenges that rural and small urban communities face in things like data collection, and that maybe FMCIB could fund in their next go round, or maybe even a recommendation to the legislature this time, that in addition to however many hundreds of millions of dollars that they're going to award, maybe they could fund $150,000 or $250,000 rural freight mobility data collection effort across not just Peninsula, but rural Washington. And that would have huge benefit for you, as well as communities like yours across the state. So I just wanted to put that out there and call your attention to it, because I very intentionally put that in there, and I don't want to include that if that's not something that you agree with.
No, 100%. Thank you, Thera. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, Thera, it's been a while since I've monitored FMCIB. Are they still promoting last in dollars as their primary? Because historically, they like to always be the last dollar into a project versus the first dollars in. Any change in that?
Well, I looked at, good question, David, and I looked at the results from their last process 2 years ago. I did not see where that came in as a factor in their evaluation. What they are keenly interested in are legislative groundbreaking and ribbon cutting opportunities. It's the other thing I realized also is that, in so many grant programs, local match is a real priority. No match is required, but it is an evaluation factor. All the way up to 50% match is just worth 1 point, 0 to 5%. So I told folks, don't let, trying to come up with like a 60%, like, unless you're coming up with like massive match, it's 1 point. There are a lot of other factors that are higher concern for them.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All right, is there a motion to approve, and this is not the requested action because I'm going to speak to it, or I'm going to state it with the Port Townsend, Jefferson County addition. So approve the 5 freight projects, 4 described in our packet and the 1 described by Kate and Ben and Thera for that interchange at the boundary of Jefferson County and Port Townsend, for submittal to FMCIB as regional funding candidates.
So moved, Brendan.
Thank you, Brendan. A second?
Second that.
No.
Heard Ben first. And then any further discussion? Any objection to this motion for the 5 freight projects submittal to FMCIB? Hearing no objection, that motion passes. Thank you all. And thanks for the robust discussion as well. Our next agenda item is the proposal for an in-person executive board meeting in June. And we have not met in person for a long time. And I think we've seen that there's a lot of advantage to meeting on Zoom, especially with a geographic area that can take maybe 4 hours to drive across. And so, but there's still a lot of value to coming together in person. So we've been thinking about how to maximize that value of traveling together and being together in person. And I think Thera is prepared to talk more about the details of this proposal.
Thanks. This was a fun one to work with Lindsay and with the executive committee. I'll say it's been a really long time since I've gotten to work with you guys really close, and the chance to do this would be fun. And we've heard it from you for a long time to do this. So the proposal before you reflects that input from Lindsay and the full executive committee. It's bigger than, it's sort of to make it worth people's while to get there. It envisions something more comprehensive than, I'm going to just, the typical, like a meeting like we're doing right now, and just going through any things that we could just do anytime on Zoom, and try to make it more interactive, time for group discussion and one-on-one discussion and all those types of interactions. So what you have before you in the way of a proposal, and again, it's a straw man to respond to, but what it would assume is more of a retreat like atmosphere. It would, as it's laid out in the morning, the activities we certainly need to complete business activities. You will need to take action on some things, and so we would take care of that right up front, and then from the rest of that, it's very open to this. Is why I want to talk with you all about this. Very open to adaptation. The thinking, as is laid out here, is that after the business meeting, maybe invite, because we're up there, the proximity to hear from people who, relevant to what you all do. It would be great to do that. And so what, I'll just say I've never, never mind, I'll stop that thought. But there are multiple organizations. I list in here a couple you might want to hear from. Western Federal Lands. To the best of my knowledge, PRTPO does not have any engagement history at all with Western Federal Lands, and yet they are responsible for the transportation planning and transportation funding for hundreds of thousands of acres across the region. So maybe that would be a good sort of a thing. Or maybe it's somebody like Karen Affeld from NODC, the North Olympic Development Council, that I think half of you all are probably involved with her, but maybe there's opportunity there. Maybe have a briefing from her. Or another one that I mentioned in here is somebody with Olympic Community of Health. That's the RTPO equivalent for the healthcare arena, public health arena. And that entity actually includes Clallam, Jefferson, and Kitsap counties is in their area. And these are the people who the Human Services Transportation Plan, we will be working with them going forward in the future. Their work is right up the alley of HSTP. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking about. Sort of a briefing, presentation, sort of introductory, here's what our organization does, and get some discussion going about maybe where some opportunities for cross-sector collaboration exists, whatever, and then move into hands-on stuff. And so I'm an old planner. I really miss the chance to stand around big old maps and with sticky notes and markers and, elbow to elbow, marking things up. And so the TAC is working with WashDOT right now on some complete streets things, and it's going to roll into the RTP. And I can see an exercise there where this group with input from the TAC and whoever can show up is marking up a map and highlighting those places where, as WashDOT is trying to figure out where to focus its complete streets opportunities when they have no money to do any of it, if they could get some clarity from this region as to where those, especially those outlying areas are, or even those like Main Street as a state highway, where are those priority segments? Because you know what's coming up in your land use plans. You know where you see, transit service access needs. You all have these ideas and we can bring them together. So that's the morning. Lunch, we'll talk about lunch later. And then in the afternoon, again, the focus there is very much on interactive. And this is really dedicated to something we're going to talk about later in this agenda, which is what do you see your role as an RTPO, as PRTPO? And if you think of the transition, first 29 years, PRTPO 1.0, WSDOT administered, a planning project. Transition, PRTPO 2.0, you're in the driver's seat. This is what it means to be a board-directed organization. You've had a few years now to kind of get your feet wet with this, to see what this is like. You have a unique structure. How do we make the most of that? And so again, this is information that'll be hugely useful for the RTP, for you all to have an opportunity to sit down in small group and a big group, talk about the role you see yourself playing, the role you see PRTPO playing going forward. Is it just a compliance with state requirements, meet the bare minimum state requirements? It might be, and there might be a lot of good reasons for that. Is it to do more and to try to move the needle on some issues that you all see as important to the region? It's what you've been doing. What does that look like? How do you do that? Where are the areas? Where do you see your greatest strengths? Where are your weaknesses? How do we tap those? Who are the untapped partners who have interest in common? That's what that afternoon session is about, and really defining what PRTPO 2.1 looks like. That's what this RTP is going to queue up. So that's what the whole afternoon session is about. And so that's, again, tried to build in as much interactivity as possible. And then the idea came up, maybe there's a field trip at the end of all of this. And so that all depends upon where it's held at. And I know I don't want to seem like I'm jumping the gun, but I did reach out, and the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe has graciously offered Red Cedar Hall if the board chooses to meet in person in June and that location is suitable. And then in talking with Wendy further about that, there are some very good walking field trips that could be done for those who want to hang around a little bit afterwards and go see some cool projects and works that's being done on the Olympic Discovery Trail within a 5 to 10 minute walk of Red Cedar. And it is the longest day of the year. And it's the North Olympic Peninsula. So what's not to like? Oh, and then just to make it as open as possible, invite any TAC members who could possibly, it's asking a lot, but for those for whom they can make that time worthwhile, or who can make that time happen, we'll do our best to make it worthwhile. So have interactive between policymakers and staff, and just, let's try to make the best use of it. The first time in over 4 years that you all could actually sit down with each other. So that's my pitch to you as to why you want to do it. We do have a big open question about how to handle lunch. PRTPO has no money for anything beyond just staffing that day. So that's a question we don't have an answer to, and you all could talk about that now. The executive committee ideas range from brown bagging it to taking up a collection to just turning everybody loose, whatever. So that's outside my swim lane, and I'll leave that to you all to talk about here. But that's my pitch to you, and look forward to your discussion. And we would like at the end of this action as to whether or not to continue pursuing this. And again, any insights and guidance and direction now is really greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. I see Brendan, and then we'll go to Rachel.
Yeah, I wouldn't be available that day, and then also I think the AWC conference runs from the 18th to the 21st as well in June. So just something else to be aware of.
That was my comment as well. Yeah, the annual conference ends at 11 on the 21st. So I don't know how many people would leave on Thursday and be available, or leave on Wednesday and be available. Yeah, so that was my concern.
Yeah, so Brendan, neither you nor I are going to AWC's conference. It is in Vancouver, so it would probably preclude participating. It looks like Kate will be at AWC, infiltrating as her county official role. I don't know if Squim or Port Townsend or, well, I'm not going to name off all the cities in our 4 counties. If any of the other city officials know yet if they're going to be there. And that is a good point that we did not consider as we were getting this proposal together.
Yeah, we just were meeting date.
How many people think they could attend? Go ahead and raise your virtual hand or your real hand. And this is not binding you in any way. So this is still hands up for you think you could attend.
Not many.
All right, and then go ahead and put your hands down. How many people think they would, or no, they would not be able to attend? This is like, I'm definitely not. All right, that's Ed. Of course you're going to be at ABC. I'm the alternate, so I won't see you there, but I will virtually join legislative priorities.
Can I ask if this is just and the issue is it's really the date conflict. I just want to make sure it's not the fact that we put out there like a more extended event. That's, I guess, the main thing I want to make sure of. That's not the length of the event, that it's just a date because it could just be a 2-hour meeting. We could absolutely do this.
No, for
So
me,
Yeah,
it's
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm asking specifically that date, that Friday, June 21st. So let's not ask a compound question at this point, if that's okay. How many people are maybe?
I would just like to add, this is Tracy, that my last day of Squaxin will be April 30th, so I will no longer be working for Squaxin. I accepted a position over at the Chehalis tribe, so we're going to look towards adding Monica Nerney to the group until we hire another planner. So just letting you know that piece of information. I could check with her to see if she would be able to attend the meeting on the 22nd. So
Congratulations, Tracy.
thank you.
Lindsay, would you like me to throw a quick poll out? Would that be helpful? Likely
Oh,
not likely.
if that's helpful, but if
And,
I feel like we kind of maybe just got that information, so it might be repetitive.
Okay.
Okay, and then let's see, who didn't respond? No, just kidding. That one never works. All right, any discussion? Well, maybe it's this question that Thera just asked. Is it that date? Well, maybe let me rephrase that. Is there any opposition to the idea of trying to find a more interactive in-person day for us to meet as PRTPO's executive board, with invitations to the TAC and that general concept, not specific to the date of the 21st of June, but just the general concept? All right, it sounds like we're in favor of this idea, and we just need to pin down the right day to do it. And it seemed like, I didn't do the count exactly, but was it about half of us would be able to do that date? And then maybe a quarter were definite no's and maybe a quarter were maybes? That's what I was kind of seeing, but that is not precise. Marty, go ahead, help me out here.
I was gonna say, it kind of looked like not what everybody knows, not everybody was responding to if they could make it or not make it, so I don't know what's going on, but probably maybe send out an email and try to figure out who could all make it on that day, or if you want to change it, then who could all make it on another day or whatever. I don't know, just trying to throw out some suggestions to see
Yeah.
what could work or not.
I mean, maybe we could do a poll to everybody about the scheduled Friday meetings that we have, every other month. And maybe of those Fridays, which one is the best one for us to look for an in-person day? That might provide more opportunity to maximize the time. We don't necessarily know our schedules further out as well. Any feelings on that idea? Any objection to that idea of just pooling to see how, if of the scheduled Friday meetings that we have, like, is there one that's going to be much better for all of us rather than the 21st? All right, go ahead, Ben, and then Kate.
The only problem is that whatever the closest one is going to have a disadvantage because we all have other things popping up, and down the line, it's always easier to say. My schedule's open further down, of course, but so I'd hate to push this too far into the future.
Thank you. Kate?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to find a time that more than half of us can make it unequivocally regardless. So I definitely support you moving forward with the date if it works for a critical mass of folks. I'm still a maybe, just depends on the agenda at AWC. I'm very well could be back and would love to attend and think it's a great idea and will do my best to attend regardless.
Thank you. Rachel?
I was going to recommend trying, maybe it would work better for everybody to move the in-person meeting to August, because I think we have one in August, right? So that it might work better.
All right. I don't want to spend too much. Dick, was that you're up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can't find out how to do the hand thing, but just I think just schedule it and we'll go for it. Yeah, because if we keep talking about it, none of us really know what's going to happen. So just schedule it and we'll work from there.
All right. We haven't made a motion yet. I threw out a proposal and I've heard 3 people say, you know what, just go for it. Half of us is a pretty good crowd. Does anyone want to make a motion, or I can read the requested action?
So moved.
Dick, are you moving the requested action, which is the board is asked to discuss or to approve a proposal for an extended in-person meeting on June 21st?
Yes.
All right. Is there a second for Dick's motion?
I'll second.
Second by Marty, and then Christine.
I'm waiting for discussion. Is it discussion time?
Yes, go ahead.
I am wholeheartedly think we should do this, but I think to the point that attendance is spotty, if we know a third of the people here can't come because they're at a different conference and we'll get less than full participation by the remainder, then June 21st is not the right day.
Thank you, Christine. Any further discussion? John?
Yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Rolfus, and I'm wondering if we could look at the Friday either before or the Friday after it's close to. But see, maybe we do both or something like that to schedule on, because we clearly understand that the 21st has a obvious conflict, but we're all going to have conflicts. But when you're conflicting with a significant portion of the board members, I think we should look at alternatives.
Thank you, John. The motion before us is to meet on the 21st. So we've heard 2 people speak against that motion. Anyone want to speak for it?
This is Brendan. I'll just say that for me, August would be more appealing.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. We are not going to do this motion by unanimous consent because I think some people will object. So let's see. Go ahead, and if you are in favor, of the motion to meet in person on June 21st, please go ahead and unmute and say aye or raise your hand or indicate otherwise.
Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Boy,
Nay.
I'm not sure how to call that one. So I think we'll have to do a roll call vote. Sarah, are you prepared to do that?
I could throw a poll out, a yay or nay.
Oh, that would be great. Do a poll.
Yeah, let me quick change it. Yay.
I love that this is our most contentious vote in a long time.
It is, it's great. Save, launch. And so this, let me go back and make sure the question is, should we meet in person in June? Meet in
June,
person
specifically, it's the meeting for June 21st.
on June 21st, okay. Let's see, pardon my, save this webinar poll, launch it, launch. Lord, you guys have no idea how this is testing my, okay, so are you seeing something?
We are seeing the poll as if it's been answered, I think.
It says panelists cannot vote. I can't vote.
Yeah, I think you ended the poll, unfortunately.
You guys, you have no idea how out of my element I am on this. Relaunch, let's try this. Yes, will clear existing, do I want to continue? Yes, I do. Hands off. No idea what's happening on your end.
No, it says I can't vote.
I recommend we do a quick.
Yeah, I won't do anything.
Let's do a quick. Why don't we just do a quick roll call and somebody note down who's been called on and how they vote.
All right, we're going to do a roll call vote. Sorry, I just don't have a list of everybody prepared for that.
What if people turn off their cameras and then turn them on to vote? Like I yay, and then you turn your camera on, and then when you take the no, then those yays go dark, and then the nays turn their cameras on. So just so we can see really quick.
We'll try that. That'll be faster than the roll call.
Yeah.
But we might have to just go to the traditional roll call. So cameras off. If you are a yay for meeting on June 21st, please turn your camera back on. All right, I'm seeing 8 yays. All right, so cameras off. And if you are a nay for meeting on the 21st, please turn your camera on.
Wait, what was it? Sorry.
This is nay. This is not meeting on the 21st. Or not meeting in person on the 21st. Brennan can't decide. That is 7. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, by a majority, the yays have it. So we did just pass the motion to meet in person on June 21st. We will continue that plan. I realize that was a very close vote, although I think there were a lot more people than voting, so a number of people abstained. Wendy, go ahead. Sorry, Wendy, you're muted.
I broke the tie. Aren't I the 8th person?
Oh, did you vote
no?
nay?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I did not see that. Okay, so we have a tie vote. That means it does not pass. I apologize. The motion failed, and it sounds like we need to decide when a good date is. So I'm going to suggest that the executive committee take this back and figure out a system for figuring out when the majority of people can get together. What I've heard is that we do want to do an in-person meeting. We do not like the June 21st date. And so we will figure out a better time. And options that people have mentioned are the other days that are scheduled for our bi-monthly meeting. People have even mentioned even other days other than those. So we'll figure out how to make that work, either with the executive committee or Thera and myself. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I was just going to mention, you noted that there are more people here than we're voting, and part of that reason is people like myself that's an alternate when the primary is here, like Ed. I'm not eligible to vote, no, should not be voting. So just FYI.
Thank you for pointing that out, and thanks for not rigging the system there. Thera, go ahead.
And I just wanted to, so when we have 3 meetings left after June. So I can tell you right now at the December meeting, assuming the direction from last year still stands, that's off the table because that would be the legislative forum, PRTPO. So it would really, it's the August meeting or the October meeting are the 2 regular meetings that are, you know, on the books. And I will just say that it's, as somebody who spends a lot of time trying to get groups scheduled, if we pick a different meeting date for the executive board meeting, I think it could take a lot of time to find that date. I just put that out there.
Thank you, Thera. Since we really try to make this the decision-making body and not the executive committee the decision-making body, I would like to formalize what I just said just to make sure that people are okay with that. So would somebody be willing to make a motion to authorize the executive committee to decide an in-person meeting date following polling of the executive board members?
So moved, Brendan.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Marty. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, is there any objection to authorizing the executive committee to decide an in-person meeting date following polling of the executive board members? This is the executive board. The executive committee is 3 of us working with Thera and Ed and John and Miranda. All right. Hearing no objection, that motion passes. We will get some polling out to you all. Please do respond to that promptly because our schedules are all very tight. We've been trying to schedule with a subgroup of the executive board, and that was difficult in itself. And then we will figure out what day works best for the majority of people. And I'll apologize in advance that it's probably not going to work for everybody. Thank you all, and thanks for working through that scheduling challenge. It was great to test our votes on something that isn't super controversial. So in case we have a decision about, you know, which road to close down, we can do that in a more democratic way. All right. Next up, we have the UPWP Amendment number 1. And that is the Unified Planning Work Program. And that's to you again, Thera.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is for our new members, UPP, that's an acronym you'll get very familiar with, the Unified Planning Work Program. It is PRTPO's budget and work plan for the biennium. And it was adopted a year ago. And then per PRTPO's bylaws, it gets checked midpoint through that biennium and sort of recalibrated because we know stuff today we didn't know 15 months ago. And then it would then guide our work, the work that you direct for the rest of the biennium. PRTPO operates off of funding that it receives from the state legislature, which then goes through WSDOT and gets allocated out to the RTPOs. PRTPO operates on a little less than $137,000 a year, and that covers all of your expenses, your overhead, your fixed cost, your staffing, legal, administrative stuff. So it's a tiny work program, and a lot of it is sort of hardwired that it's just what you got to do because you're an RTPO. So we try to do that as efficiently as possible to maximize your opportunity to do some other things. This particular biennium, those other things are very focused on the regional transportation plan update that's underway right now. It has been on your agenda every meeting since probably about a year ago, and it'll be on your agenda for all the way through the end of the biennium, so that in June of 2025, you will be adopting your next update, and we'll be talking about that a lot. But because of that, though, it means that you really don't have the capacity to pick up anything else, really. That's, but what we do try to do with your work program always, there's any number of ways that we could follow through on some of the direction that we receive from WashDOT in compliance with 4780. And to the extent possible, we tie that in with your work program. We do it in ways that make sense for the Peninsula region. We don't just take a cookie cutter approach to satisfying state requirements. And an example of that is that without any change in your work program, we don't have any additional budget, but the intercity, the Travel Washington intercity bus program is being updated. This is the plan that governs the Dungeness line and some other long distance transit routes across the state. There are 4 of them that serve rural Washington. That plan's being updated, and they invited PRTPO to participate as a stakeholder. Well, that is also a priority topic that the board is diving into for the RTP update. So that's an example of where we're going to be able to participate in that program, and it's mentioned in here, but it's not just we don't just do it without having value elsewhere in our work program. So that's, as you look through the regional work program, the UPWP, you'll see, things you'll kind of go like, oh, that's why she keeps bringing that to us. Yeah, that's because it's called out in there. So the way our process works is I bring this to you for a first read now. Again, there's not a lot of change in the language. The budget, we're recalibrating based on what we know today. So you'll see some shifts between what we thought we'd be spending in program administration and in regional planning. And a lot of that has to do with how the regional transportation plan rolls out and moves forward. So hopefully those numbers all make sense to you as you look at them. I'd happily answer any questions that you have about it, and then I will take any input that you give me today, any changes that you want made, make those changes, and I'll be sending that revised draft to WashDOT planning office at headquarters, and Ryan Clemens, our liaison, is on here today. And then we are meeting with them, WashDOT and PRTPO are meeting next week to do the annual check-in between WashDOT and PRTPO, and they'll tell us what they don't like about our UPWP, what they do like about it, and we'll make some more tweaks, and then we'll bring those back to you in June and ask for your action then, and then that would be our budget for the rest of the biennium. So that's my pitch or overview to you, and happily answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Thera. And again, this is the no action, just the first reading. So any questions for Thera or general comments? All right. Well, we will then move on to our next topic, which is the deep dives on tough topics. I like that name. I'm not sure why we chose that, for a strategic regional agenda. And this, again, is just a discussion to help inform our planning, and specifically our coordinator, Thera's planning. So Thera, do you want to introduce this? And
Yeah.
I guess I should clarify, this is not going to inform, well, likely not to inform in-person activities in June, since we just decided that June 21st will not be the day that we do a longer in-person meeting. We will still have our meeting on June 21st, though, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We didn't vote to change that.
Clarification. So yeah, so astute readers, if you read your packet ahead of time, you'll say, oh, wait, this just changed, changed this agenda item, and it did. So I'm coming back to you this month. Last meeting, not last month, but in February, we talked about tough topics. And so these are those things, we started that conversation in December. And these are the topics that what we did was we called back, we went through, PRTPO 2.0 since 2019, July of 2019. You all have been developing a legislative agenda every year. Every year you sit down and you figure out what are the very small handful of regional concerns you want to bring to the attention of the legislature. Sometimes it's just bringing it to their attention. Sometimes you're doing something about it, but these are things that floated to the top in your discussions. And so what we did for this exercise we started last fall, and to figure out like what are the big issues that this RTP should focus on. What we did was we went back through all those transportation outlooks. We pulled all those tough topics, all those issues, pulled all those issues. We sort of distilled them down, your input and the TAC input along the way, shaped those. And we came to you in December and said, okay, here's a list, I forget what it was, 20 or 25 of these sort of tough topics. Sent a poll out to all the executive board members and said, what do you think? Should we look at any of these any deeper? Which of these should we take a closer look at for the RTP? And so then we took those to the TAC in January, and we brought those to you in February. And in February, in discussing it, we realized, okay, there's these about 20 issues or so, and they're all important. They're all tough topics. But some of them seem to have potential, like low-hanging fruit, maybe. Things that PRTPO might be able to articulate a direction, put better clarity on what is the specific issue? Who should be at the table, who's not at the table? How would you even start to address this problem? The intent is not to tell you what the solution is, because these are big, gnarly issues that don't have easy answers, but they affect mobility across the Peninsula region. And this is the only organization with all of you sitting around it talking about these issues. So what are those small handful of issues? And so we talked last in February about 6 deep dive topics. And I said I was bringing those back to you today to talk about further. And so that's what we're going to be talking about here, are these deep dive topics. And just to give you a sense of the kinds of things that we hope to get out of this, like we'll be identifying some like next steps that PRTPO could take. And this gets back to that discussion I'd mentioned earlier about in June, but what is your role? What kind of things can you do as a convener to move the needle on some of these issues? And you have experience with that. You have weighed in on the federal funding swap program in ways that help to get legislative support for that and get that extended through the end of 2026. And I believe PRTPO is the only RTPO in the state to weigh in on that. And what we heard from our legislators was that made a difference. The whole EV, this little initiative, we're not EV experts. We don't, the more I know, the more I learn about electric vehicles and clean fuels and hydrogen, the less I know. So we don't expect to be subject matter experts, but we've got a really big table, and we can put more chairs around it and get people talking to each other. And today, just this past week, a multi-million-dollar EV infrastructure project went into the STIP that is being led by Energy Northwest and has 12 locations that were developed in consultation with our members, and it's going to put DC fast charge all the way around the US 101 corridor. If PRTPO hadn't created the opportunity for these people to come together and even get to know each other and start collaborating in that same vein, the Squaxin Island tribe, Tracy, you are going to be so missed. The Squaxin Island tribe is leading an effort. The Skokomish tribe is participating, in the Jamestown Sklallam tribe with the WSU Green Transportation Program, and they're each going to get transportation electrification plans for their tribes that are developed in conjunction with the PUDs for their areas, and in the case of the 2 tribes in Mason County with Mason Transit, because Mason Transit's also doing its zero emissions transition plan. So that was a serendipity of folks from the WSU Green Transportation Program coming in and getting to know the players in PRTPO and providing support. And so those are just examples of things that you have already done. So these 6 deep dive topics we're going to look at, those things are going to keep going. And these are some new things that we're going to look at closer to figure out what are those things that you can put forward. And so what you have here in front of you, in your, what I have in front of me, what you have in your agenda packet, is sort of how we might propose, how I propose we go about this. And some of these are things that the board will sort of take the lead on, just like we're doing all throughout this RTP. Others are things that the TAC will take the lead on, and then they intersect further down. But with bi-monthly meetings, you know, that's just how it rolls. And so what you see on the agenda, I think I forgot to put, I'm sorry, I forgot to put the Bates number in on the agenda packet this month. I'm sorry. But anyways, what you see for this agenda item is that we've got the board sort of taking the lead on talking about increasing operational efficiency of the Hood Canal. We'll get the messaging right, we'll get the problem right, all of that. The approach put out there, and Christine might be reading this for the very first time right now, but there is somebody on your board who actually has experience with this from over a decade ago. And so she's been through this process. She knows what it's going to take, and she knows who needs to be made aware of this, and how all those players interact. And so maybe as part of this deep dive, what the board is doing is inviting Christine to share with you an overview of that process. And then also bringing in, this could coincide with the meeting when WashDOT is giving you updates on stuff where we've got the WashDOT team in full force to also talk about what are the operational infrastructure needs, especially on the east end of the bridge, the roundabout treatments and stuff. And it's not to say exactly what needs to happen, but just to get an understanding so you could say, yeah, here's something that's specifically can be done and who it would need to be done by, and just lay out those bite-sized steps that can start moving this thing. Because as you see, you don't need a ton of money to throw at things to move that needle. So that's the Hood Canal Bridge. The whole thing, how to effectively support long distance intercity bus travel. That's that participation. So I'll be participating on this Travel Washington intercity bus program. It'll have like 3 or 4 meetings over the next 6 months. And working in coordination, I'll be able to be a liaison between our transit partners and that process, and take that information back and forth. And we'll learn some things in that about what we might want to put in an action strategy. And so that's how that one would play out. And in that particular one, that's the TAC and transit taking the lead on that one. The other one, another one up there is how to, better support our marine highway system, and in particular, the ferries and the marine terminals that support them. It's such an important part of our transportation system. And for years, this board has just been like, oh, we've got to improve the operational efficiency. Well, what does that even mean? And so maybe bringing in folks from both Washington State Ferries to talk with you, as well as John's team. We have remarkable expertise on this board, again, in this area, with passenger ferry service. And what do we not get about this? What is it that PRTPO could do to better support state ferries and the funding and the system reliability? So that's what that one's intended to do. And then how to increase resilience and preparedness in the Peninsula region. And I'll say that when we did the poll back in December, one of the things that jumped out at me on that one was that so much of the conversation about increasing resilience is about route redundancy. And the immediate assumption is that we're talking about laying down a grid system over rural areas. And of course, there's no money for that. But actually, there are hundreds or maybe thousands of miles of commercial logging roads, Forest Service roads that, are they're just not at this table, but they've got transportation funding and they've got their own route hierarchy system, and their biggest and most important of those roads all intersect the state highway system, because that's how it supports commercial logging in this region. And those roads are built hell for stout. So maybe this one is about sitting down and scoping it out with some of our other land use management partners and Western Federal Lands, and talking about how could there be coordination between state and federal land management agencies and local government. You all have countywide emergency management plans. Do they fit at the borders? PRTPO could invite the 4 emergency countywide emergency management planners to the table and hear how they coordinate between them. Do they? I don't know. I'm sure they do, but that would be a good thing that PRTPO could do it and wouldn't cost a lot of money. Again, what a deep dive could flesh that out. And then the last one on the table is regional strategy. The regional strategies to promote safer streets for all. And that is, again, building off that exercise. We'll find another way to do this exercise, but giving WashDOT some guidance from this region as to where those priority places are, that if they don't have enough money to do Main Street treatments everywhere and complete streets, really try to focus on these particular areas because it's most important for our land use plans or transit access or those types of things. So that's the TAC will take the lead on that. The last one is on your plate, and that is how do you support, how does PRTPO support itself going forward in a more sustainable way? And this is a part of a bigger statewide conversation that's also happening right now. It ties into your discussion about what role you see yourself playing in the region going forward as a PRTPO organization, and how you collaborate with your partners. I don't think you see yourselves as being regulatory in that regard. I think you're doing something different, but how do you pay for that? You're on a long, slow decline to doing less and less without an increase in funding, and that's what that topic is. And so we'll explore that. Those are the 6 topics. Between now and next February, we will dive into those, but I put that out there for you. Does this approach sound like a good way of starting to scratch the surface on these things and think of the next 1 or 2 steps? I know Roger Millar cringes when I appropriate his terminology about practical solutions, but I believe that practical solutions begin in the RTP, and they begin with stuff like this, just better understanding the issues, who needs to be at the table, who's not at the table, and what are those things that we can do to start moving the needle. So there's the end of my long yammer, and I turn it over now to you for your discussion on these topics, insights that you have, what you would hope comes out of this, questions you might have about a strategic action agenda. Anything, your questions now will really help me know how to shape this going forward. Thank you.
And this is just discussion, not action. I should note that that last item about PRTPO and the regional transportation planning organizations in general and our funding, we do have a work group that now has some scheduled meetings on that. And people are welcome to join if they're not already part of that, assuming you can make the meeting times. And but yeah, I'd love to hear from folks. And I think especially Thera wants to make sure that she's planning our meetings and our agendas in the way that makes the most sense for us. Marty.
That was a lot, but I do want to say that that I think that PRTPO is a great thing because I do remember back in the day when I tried to ride a bus somewhere, there was no connection back then between the county. I got dropped off at the county line, and there was no bus to ride from there, and I had to hitchhike one time. And so I think that the collaboration between all of us is great, you know, and I'm glad that I'm a part of it because you can see all the different things that are going on with all the different counties and all the different participants here and everything. So I just wanted to say that real quick. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty. I'm with you. I love taking the multiple bus service connections between different areas, whether it's Aberdeen and Port Angeles, or I did Olympia to Port Angeles during legislative session. Actually, I'm not going to do that again because it takes way too much time because the connections are so bad. But you have beautiful rest breaks at beautiful state parks on the way. Christine.
Yeah, I did want to say I'm happy to help with a deep dive on the Hood Canal Bridge. And I feel like I don't know if the Jefferson County folks or the Kitsap, I'm fully aware, I don't know if Poulsbo is, but the construction on those roundabouts on the Jefferson County side is starting fairly soon. And the residents on the Kitsap side are really concerned about traffic backups as a result of construction, and we have no solution for them. And so raising that to the Jefferson County side of this, I don't know without state support or state leadership how we manage for that. But I'm actually very concerned about what the situation is going to be all summer with that construction project.
Thanks, Christine. There's also, I think, a question came up at our last Clallam Transit meeting about the travel speed on 101 with a number of roundabouts in place. And fortunately, I was able to channel Michael and his explanation that the choice is not between the existing intersections and roundabouts, it's between traffic signals and roundabouts. But so that's a larger question. This is not just construction related, but actually I think it really gets to how land use planning intersects with transportation planning. And transportation safety engineers are responding to our land use planning and the additional demand on intersections based on that. What else?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, there is concern about roundabouts slowing things down, but my concern was more situational related to the construction.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to misunderstand that. Yes, that there's the construction phase, and then there's also just we're hearing in Port Angeles just a lot of educational need around roundabouts, which is separate from what Christine just raised. Ed.
Lindsay, is what Christine just enunciated, is that something we can charge Sarah and her staff with overriding, informing, coordinating, or any level thereof?
I'm going to defer to Sarah to answer that question.
I've got some pretty talented staff. No, actually, I don't. She's sleeping at my feet right now. But this is a great example of what I would see right now. You don't have the resources. I'll tell you, you've got about 10 hours a month that I get to put into the RTP, and that's really carved out. It's why these little bite-sized things are so important. But that's exactly the kind of a thing that would come out of this. Maybe there's one of the things that's coming out of this is PRTPO is pointing to the need for heightened educational materials on how to navigate a roundabout for all modes of travel, no matter whether you're a trucker, driver, bicyclist, pedestrian. And then if that's clearly defined, whether it's PRTPO or Kitsap County or anybody could go to like the Traffic Safety Commission and say, we need like $50,000 to put this thing together. And then you've got like this discrete item that you directly addresses these things. The issue about construction this summer, it's interesting if there's not an awareness that is George, God, I don't want to throw George, too much on the spot here, but you're in the meeting, my friend. So I'm assuming that WashDOT's getting information out to the communities about the construction impacts this summer, because they've been pretty, really, really trying to promote information. I know on our website, we've got the latest information from them. But George, is there anything speaking to Christine's concern about, and everybody's concerned about what the construction impacts are going to be from the roundabout construction this summer?
Yeah, so the outreach started, I think, 6 months ago, and continues, but you're only going to reach so many people. And I know what happened last summer is the first few days of the construction was quite a mess, and we had to pivot and adjust at that point. So there's best laid plans. We communicate those plans, and then there's pivoting in the field. And we just got to accept that's probably going to occur again this year and next year and the year after, because this is going to continue for the next several summers. Not only roundabouts, but fish passage.
Thank you, George. Christine, and then Ed.
Yeah, George, thank you for saying that. There's two different things, or actually like three different things. One is telling the people that live in the area that it's going to be a hard summer, right? So we notified. Then there's notifying travelers that it's going to stink and they should find alternate routes or plan their trip to know that it's going to take longer. So that's step 2, that you guys are pretty good at. And then step 3 is somehow having the construction teams aware of the backups. Like as you guys do your traffic delays, somehow having it be monitored so that they know how long the backup is going across the bridge, and having state patrol out there, because I don't anticipate that there will not be road rage associated with this. because people are going to be parking in front of people's driveways and blocking traffic through
Yep.
state, you know, up to Port Gamble, et cetera. So we don't, as local government, we don't really have the means of regulating this, I'm finding, but DOT and the state patrol do. So George, is there something like that proactively that you can tell us you guys are looking at with the construction team and traffic enforcement in this area?
Well, like I said, there is the monitoring process, and we a lot of times will adjust some of the scheduling of our work. Adjust, you know, if there's one-way signals, we'll adjust that type of work. You know, in terms of what you said of you know, potential road rage and things like that. I mean, those are, you know, kind of events we can't anticipate and can't throw resources towards to try to prevent. We count on the goodwill of people and the you know, our proactive information to hopefully get people to make some adjustments and to change their own expectations. So we do everything we can on the information side. We collect information, we observe as we go along, we pivot. Kind of, you know, we're limited beyond that of what we can do because there's just not a lot of options out in this area to do rerouting and detouring.
Thank you. We have Ed and then Wendy.
Thank you, Lindsay. George, I know your electronic reader boards on either side of the bridge and at the intersection with 305, you're going to be blasting this message out in caps, right? Hopefully capture the attention of drivers directly. The other thing I would like to suggest, if you could coordinate with Michael Bateman, who's engineering and staffs this meeting for the city of Paulsville, is to get you on a city council meeting briefly in person. Bring a PowerPoint or two along is great. And we are televised for the north end of the county, and quite a few people watch. And at least we could inform in that manner live time. And then if there's questions, there's a little bit of dialogue to color it up. So I would encourage you to coordinate with Michael, and we'll get you on an agenda televised.
Yeah, and Michael, you'll probably want to be with our project offices on that. They'll have all the details of when folks are in the field versus information that I can provide. So, but definitely we can do that. There was another item I was going to point out is as much as we can in your communications with your citizens and on your websites is to encourage them to sign up for our traffic updates. We do daily email blasts for every project and every route when there's going to be obstructions, and it gives some pretty darn good information for folks who, you know, who subscribe to them. So it's just a matter of people understanding that this information is available, and it can help, you know, with making day-to-day or week-to-week adjustments in your travel patterns.
Thank you. Thanks, George. Wendy? Oh, Wendy, you're still muted.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, Christine. I was the point person for WashDOT to interact on the Eagle Creek project, which was right on the county line in Jamestown Slalom country. And with that project, we really could be a test case for how all projects that can be very disruptive can be managed. One of the things that the tribe demanded was to have enforcement at any entrance to a skip around or a shortcut road so that the tribal lands were protected from people trying to jump the queue. I know that's probably true around Shine Road and other areas close to the Hood Canal Bridge. But moreover, we asked for cameras, and those cameras were posted as a link so that anyone can log in and see how bad the backups are. And they were strategically located so someone could get a good view. And the win-win was the contractor was able to take advantage of seeing what was going on with, you know, there's not a lot of DOT oversight on some of these projects. If, they can look into the cameras and see what's going on in the field. And then just to the big shocker was that WashDOT didn't do any coordination with the emergency management groups in Clallam and Jefferson County. They spent about 2 earnest weeks to plow out where are those new helicopter pads going to be for life flights. And there was a lot of coordination at the last minute because they were sort of an afterthought. So there could be disgruntled homeowners, but I think it's that emergency management issues that took the headlines at the end of the day. And I would encourage Kitsap to form a task force group around that issue.
Thank you, Wendy. I guess I'll say, George, we're kind of hitting you with some stuff, but we do recognize that I think as others in Washington have said, like people don't like the construction, but we like the result when it happens or when it's over. So we do recognize that as well. Just a reminder, we are talking about deep dive topics and how we want to approach these or if these are the right topics. So we have just a couple more minutes. Does anyone else want to speak to this issue? Wendy, I'm assuming your hand's left up residually, but Ed, go ahead. Oh, Ed, you're muted.
Lindsay, you would think we'd learn, right? I'm just going to repeat my catechism. The transportation alternative of remote work that a lot of our people are more comfortable with now, and with the BEAD funding of $1.5 billion plus the state match, $1.5 billion for years 25, 26, 27, particularly important for our friends across the bridge on the peninsula to pursue. And I would think PRTPO could really, given the money, given the application process, the state broadband office fronting for the federal government, this is our huge opportunity to alleviate demand, manage demand.
I was waiting for you to say that. I'm glad you got it in.
It's my catechism, Lindsay. There you are.
It's great. Yes, thank you. Thanks for leading on that. Any other comments before we wrap up this section? All right. Well, thank you all for that robust discussion. George, thanks so much for fielding our comments there as well. We are now on to public comment. We only have Stephanie from Kitsap Transit in. I just requested you to unmute if you want to. I assume not. Is there anyone else for public comment? I don't think so. All right, then we are on to wrapping up our meeting. Member updates. Ed, member update. Ed, you're muted.
Thank you. I'm going to have Michael back me up, but we're very proud that the roundabout project, one of the first out of the gate on Highway 305, connecting our corridors, which involved a bypass of Paulsbo. It involved under the Highway 305 pedestrian, bicycle, wildlife tunnel, received the state's Project of the Year award for the category of transportation small agency, how appropriate for PRTPO in the $5 to $25 million category. It was shared by the City of Paulsbo Active Construction and Parametrics, called the SR 305 Johnson Parkway. And I believe the State Public Works Association is actually submitting it for the national award, American Public Works Association. So on that note, I'd like to bring out Michael, representing Engineering and Public Works, to expand briefly, if you would.
Thank you, Ed. I think you did a pretty good job covering it there. You missed one partner, and that's WashDOT. WashDOT's been a great partner all along, and partnered in both the funding, of course, and in the management of the project. This is the initial implementation of a project that really started in about 1992 with our first transportation study that was done by Bill Walker Engineers. And not only is our current team proud to have delivered the project and done a great job getting it out there, but there's been a lot of vision over the years. Former city engineer Andre Kazniak, former still current consultant Phil Struck from Parametrics, as well as the current team led by Mallory Wild. We're all very happy to have happy and proud to have received that award. Thank you very much, Ed. We appreciate that.
And just to add, also some precedent-setting public artwork that most of you have seen, but it represents the cooperation of a domestic sovereign nation, the Suquamish tribe, with a municipal corporation, the city of Paulsbo, and honoring both in a complex citizen participation process. We're very proud of that as well.
That's right. Absolutely. Well said, Ed.
Thank you, and congratulations to everybody involved in that project. Any other partner updates? Hey, John.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily an update. This is just more of a comment that I wanted to share with folks. And as I'm sure everyone is aware, we have a very significant initiative that's going to be on the ballot in November. And it will have major impacts to the transportation funding in the state of Washington. And my only encouragement, I put this up in the level of Initiative 695 and what that did to our transportation system. So I just encourage everyone to make sure that they are informed on, what that initiative is going to do to the transportation system, and to share that information whenever appropriate. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, John. I will remind everyone that while we cannot use public facilities to take positions on candidate campaigns, if local governments follow the right procedure, they can take positions on ballot initiatives and other measures that appear on the ballot. So I think there's probably an opportunity later in the summer for local governments to choose to do that if that made sense, to have the opportunity to take a position. Otherwise, I know like at Column Transit, we have some information on how the Climate Commitment Act affects Column Transit's operations. Something like, being able to go zero fare was made possible by the funding from the Climate Commitment Act, as an example. Thank you for that. Anything else? Any other partner announcements? Going once. Going twice. There's way more going on out there. Marty, you told me you were long-winded, but then you kind of weren't very talkative.
Yeah, I just had a comment. I've seen something that happened. There was a terrible accident near Squaxin on the freeway. I think it was, I don't remember how many days ago, but it was a left-hand turn. There was a state patrol, I think, hit a car pulling out. I think he must have been doing a left-hand turn, but it was a fatality. And it was just awful to see. Went by there, and I guess my comment was that I'm hoping that that this brings about some sort of way Wausau might be working to try to make improvements in places like that where fatalities happen on like right there in that part where you pull out by Taylortown right there. I would just like to see something happen in certain areas like that where accidents happen like that. It's something that could be stopped, And there was another accident too that was out on, I think it was Johns Prairie Road. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there, just to say it. It was kind of on the back of my mind. And it was kind of bad too, because you could see that somebody was laying on the side of the vehicle and they had him covered up with the tarp or something. And it was just really, really awful. A lot of people were driving by there and seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Thanks for the reminder why we do this work. Dick, I see you.
Yeah, I want to comment on Marty's comment. That intersection at Lynch Road years ago was a PRTPO project to improve that intersection because of the deaths that happened there. And as a result, there have been fewer deaths. And that was a PRTPO project at one time. So
Thank
we
you,
do
Dave.
things that do that have positive effects on our community. And the accident on Johns Prairie was a singular 16-year-old kid that ran off the road. Now, I'm a fire chaplain and I was at both of those, so I know what happened to him. Thanks.
Thank you, Dick.
Thank you. All right. Any other partner updates? All right. Well, we'll let Ben get back to that conference in Port Townsend. That is, I wish I was there too. We will meet on June 21st at our usual time, 10 to noon virtually, because that is one of our scheduled meetings. And please look for an email pretty soon, I bet, on when we're going to try to schedule that in-person meeting. And please do respond to that pool as quickly as you can. We don't want to use Thera's limited hours hunting us down for responding to scheduling polls. And with that, and with nothing else, it's great to see everybody. Have a great weekend, and we are adjourned.